Hola, everybody. I am not Vince Coglianese. Vince Coglianese is enjoying a rainy day off. You picked wrong, Vince. I'm Derek Hunter. I'm senior columnist for townhall.com, junior contributor for The Hill, and podcaster extraordinaire. I'm going to be with you until 6 o'clock. Start your weekend. The number to be a part of the show, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Lots going on, new developments and everything, and quite a mess that we have because Washington, D.C. is run by morons. It truly is. You want to find a Capitol Hill, you want to know what the problem in Washington, D.C. is, find a reflective surface, and you got it. It's that little guy who is upside down in your cereal spoon, Matt Gaetz, as you eat your Fruit Loops or your Lucky Charms or whatever cereal is good for hair, but bad for the brain. It'll rot your brain. But there's other stuff going on. Really quickly, I just want to comment on this. It'll be an interesting development. Congressman James Comer, the guy leading one of the impeachment inquiries, and apparently Jim Jordan will be able to stick around and continue his impeachment inquiry too, which I actually think is a good thing. I'll explain that in a second. But the Oversight Committee over there in the House tweeted out, "We have found a $200,000 direct payment to Joe Biden." And then there's a video attached to it. The video is interesting. It's 3.5 minutes long. The gist of it is, I can tell you, that in March of 2018, Joseph R. Biden Jr., only his brother would do that. Only a family member would do that. The check is made out to Joseph R. Biden Jr. The father has long since passed by then. There's no confusion. Like, which Biden is this? We don't know. But you're not dealing with rocket scientists here with the Biden family. From James Biden Sr., $200,000, 00 cents. And in the little memo thing, it says for loan repayment. Loan repayment. Now, it turns out that on the very same day, March 1st, 2018, that James Biden Sr. wrote Joseph R. Biden Jr. this check for $200,000. James Biden Sr. got $200,000 transferred to him into the same bank account from a company called AmeriCorps Health, LLC. AmeriCorps Health, LLC, according to James Comer, was in financial difficulties at the time. It's unclear to me at this point whether or not AmeriCorps Health, LLC was one of the myriad LLCs set up by the Biden family to basically launder money. Let's be honest. They say there's more to come. We'll see what comes. But the chairman of the Government Oversight Committee is very excited that they found direct money to this. I don't know that this will amount to anything. I just want to say that right off the bat. I don't know. Nobody knows. And quite honestly, even if this was a smoking gun, these Republicans in the House of Representatives could find a way to cool it down, wash it off. Well, we're dusting it for prints, and it turns out that we used Windex to dust it for. It wouldn't surprise me in the slightest that this is how these people work. So while this is interesting, because Joe Biden said never got any money, never had anything, no money, where's the money? And that's been a mantra over at MSNBC. If Joe Biden is a corrupt president and was, where's the money? Where's the money? Where's the money? Where are the bank statements? Where are the... Well, the argument conservatives rightly made in response was you'd have to be a special kind of stupid to have cashed checks for $500,000 or whatever made out to Joe Biden. You put in the memo thing, bribe. But there are all sorts of ways to get money to people. Pay their bills for them, for example. Help them buy a mansion or a second mansion or an oceanfront mansion or all the other things. Make sure you take care of all of their living expenses. Realistically, there's many, many ways to make sure money gets to somebody, and there are very few fingerprints. You could launder it, say, through 3 to 5 to 20 different LLCs, all offshore, all confusing, and people lose track of where the money goes. You can do that sort of stuff. So the people who sit there and go, well, where's the evidence that Joe Biden, it might be out there. It's always kind of funny because the people who are most vocal about asking, well, where's the money? If Joe Biden is so corrupt, where's the money? They're the journalists, so-called, in air quotes. They're the supposed journalists. They're the people who, in theory, should be looking for the money. If you remember, during the Trump administration, the Washington Post assigned teams of reporters to crawl through every little aspect of Donald Trump's business. No rumor was beyond the pale. If he said he was going to give a charitable donation, they hounded them until he did not. He has not given it, or he gave some of it, or whatever it was. They knew every little intricate little detail of his financial existence. And when it comes to Joe Biden, they don't know how he got rich. How did he get rich? Now, it's telling that they've been looking, Republicans in the House have been looking for a year into Joe Biden's finances. And a $200,000 check is a pretty big check. I don't know, maybe not to you, but to most people, a $200,000 check is kind of a big deal. How did they just find this now? Where was this? Well, part of the answer, I think, lies in the fact that Republicans just impaneled the impeachment inquiry, which then gave investigators subpoena power. Finally, they could start looking into things. They could start looking for things that the Biden administration, that the Biden family wanted to keep hidden from them. I'd also remind you, ladies and gentlemen, of a nice little mantra that the left had during the Trump administration when people were pleading the fifth or people were fighting subpoenas and what have you. What was it that they said pretty commonly? I think Jake Tapper actually has it tattooed on his lower back. It's his tramp stamp. It's like, if you have nothing to hide, why won't you testify? If you have nothing to hide, why won't you turn it over? Why won't you turn it over? Well, I would ask the Biden family, the White House, that's a question that has never been asked for them. If the president has nothing to hide, why won't he release his banking records? Why won't he? How did he get so rich? Well, he wrote a book and he gave some speeches. Does anybody believe, has there ever been a vice president in history who's gotten filthy rich off of giving speeches? Joe Biden would be the only one. Al Gore got filthy rich off of other things. He took $300 million in oil money for his current TV. He got filthy rich there, plus Hollywood was throwing money at him. Everybody was throwing money at him. He was a darling, but he tried to ingratiate himself to those people and did their bidding and, also smiled upon the Chinese government. Remember when he did the fundraiser at the Buddhist temple out in California, raised $200,000 from monks who took a vow of poverty. We should send Al Gore to Buddhist monasteries around the globe, and we could pay off the national debt pretty quickly. He's able to get blood from a stone. He's raising $200,000 from poor people. That's a pretty good, and it's not like hundreds of thousands of monks living in that Buddhist monastery. Joe Biden the same way, except when Joe Biden left the vice presidency, he had zero cachet, zero stuff. That Al Gore had just lost the presidency but won the popular vote in 2000. Liberals felt that he was robbed, even though he wasn't. He lost his own congressional district, whatever. They thought that he was robbed, and they also thought fairly certainly that he was going to run again 4 years later. The rematch that they wanted. Oh, let's do it. He thought better of it. He was too busy releasing his second chakras all over the place and went and decided to become filthy rich, fully, totally, to completely sell out, and used the fact that people thought he might run for president as a way for them to get him money. But they loved him to begin with, and they thought he was robbed. Joe Biden had none of that. He's never been loved. He's been tolerated. He's mostly your embarrassing uncle who sits there and farts at Thanksgiving during the prayer. You're just going, oh, jeez, Uncle Charlie, just, okay, whatever, just ignore it. We'll get through this. That kind of thing. That's what Joe Biden has always been. So the idea that somebody's going to pay him $500,000 for a speech, granted, he was able to speak in 2017 when he'd left the vice presidency. He was much more coherent than he is now. But that's not saying much. You say, well, Joe Biden has become senile. And yes, Joe Biden has become senile in the last few years. But Joe Biden, you've got to remember, has always been stupid. He's always been stupid. That's why when you look at Joe Biden's gaffes, when he says something wildly dumb or seemingly out of left field, and you go, he's senile. You can't just say he's senile, because you'll never know which way the scales are tipped. It could be, he is senile, but he's also stupid. He's been stupid a lot longer than he's been senile. So you don't know which one it is to blame. So you watch all this and you watch it unfold and you go, who's going to pay that guy $100,000, $200,000 to give a speech? Why would you do that? What area of expertise does he present? The closest thing he's ever pretended to be was a foreign policy expert. And even Bill Gates, or Bob Gates, sorry, not Bill Gates. Bob Gates, Barack Obama's Secretary of Defense, said that he's been wrong on every foreign policy issue for the last 30 years. There's nothing that Joe Biden has been right on when it comes to foreign policy. We're seeing the consequences of that now. So even if your company was like, all right, the corporate retreat, let's get somebody to give a speech about China, there's no reason at all to think Joe Biden, because he's been wrong on everything. So where did the money come from? I believe that he could have, easily made $1 million or $2 million, but he's got like $20 million. Where does that come from? What other things are set up out there for him? The Penn Biden Center gets a massive donation from China, and then, Penn does, and then they start the Penn Biden Center. Why? Joe runs around saying, "Oh, how's a professor there at Penn? That's me. I was a professor there." No, you weren't. You were honorary. You never taught a single class. You've never had a student in your life. But he recounts, as if it just happened yesterday, him regaling students with tales of his time in the Senate. They paid him an awful lot of money, not millions upon millions of dollars, but they paid him an awful lot of money to use his name on letterhead, to be a figurehead, and to show up to fundraisers twice a year. It's basically it. It's usually what happens. That's the soft landing program for liberal politicians and liberal political appointees, is they get, they're the chair of this department. They're the honorary chair of this one. You got to give a commencement address. You got to show up to fundraising dinners. You got to glad hand, and they've got to be able to put your signature electronically on fundraising letters to alumni. Maybe you got to go to a football game or something. It's a soft land. It's all throughout Washington, D.C. That's how it works. That isn't enough to get $20 million. Where did Joe Biden's money come from? Now, we've got only 200,000 here. Nothing to sniff at. It's a good start. I want to know more. But weirdly, the people whose job it is, theoretically, to doggedly pursue more aren't asking any questions. They don't care. You think Rachel Maddow is feverishly writing a monologue right now, sitting down on the computer? Hey, dear everybody, we got to do this, that, and the other thing. We need to know, for the sake of the republic, we must have an idea of where Joe Biden is getting his money from, starting with this $200,000. Why okay, maybe it's a loan repayment. Maybe Joe loaned James $200,000. I'd like to know where the guy who went around saying he's the poorest senator in all of government got $200,000 to loan his brother. I'm just asking questions. I'm just asking questions. It absolves leftists from everything. But I want to know, where did he get the $200,000 to loan it out? Because at that point, March of 2018, Joe Biden had just left office in January of the previous year. January, February, March. That's 14 months. 14, now this is the beginning of March, so it's really only 13 months. Joe Biden has been out there. Was he raking in the dough that fast? He wrote a book that didn't sell all that well. He probably got a nice advance, but he's got to pay taxes. He's got a literary agent, takes 10%. Even if he got $1 million advance, he probably ended up with about $500,000 in his pocket. At most. Did he spend none of that? Did he just break off 200 and say, here you go, brother, I don't need this money? Where's the money coming from? It's not just enough to have $200,000. It's to have $200,000 and be able to afford to give $200,000 to your brother. That's a hell of a loan. If you have $500,000 and you give away $200,000 of it to your degenerate brother whose main source of income was your old professional positions in government, you don't have a position to sell anymore. Joe, how is he going to make the money to pay you back? Somehow he did. He got it directly transferred to him from a failing company. It's all very weird. Questions need to be asked, but the people whose job it is to ask these questions are not at all interested in asking these questions. That seem a little bit weird to somebody? I think it seems a little bit weird to me. Anyway, if anything else develops on this during the program, we'll bring it to you. But I just find it very weird. There's a lot of questions that aren't being asked. It's not even that Joe Biden isn't answering them. I have no doubt he'll never ask them. Or he'll never answer them. But he'll never answer them because he'll never be asked. Maybe somebody from the New York Post will throw a question in the middle of next week at the historic Karine Jean-Pierre. But that's it. Once she goes, yeah, I'm going to have to direct you to the campaign. We can't talk about I'm very worried about the Hatch Act. And then she'll move on from there. And they'll, okay, well, all right, can't ask that question, I guess. It's weird how these rules only applied starting January 20th, 2021, isn't it? It's just weird. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Derek Hunter sitting in for Vince Coglianese. You can find me at patreon.com/Derek Hunter Podcast, where I can let it rip. Or there's just the Derek Hunter Podcast. You can search that. Town Hall and The Hill, all that good stuff. All right. Now let's shift gears from the Biden corruption to Republican stupidity, shall we? Good Lord and Holy Frank Tanana. Jim Jordan is out. There was another vote Friday afternoon. I don't know why this is the thing about Washington, D.C., having worked on Capitol Hill. Votes don't normally happen where they don't know the outcome, right? They just don't. Most leaders don't hold votes unless they absolutely know what because you don't want to be embarrassed. You don't want to waste time. You don't want to do this, that, and the other thing. If you show weakness in Washington, D.C., there are a whole bunch of people who will attack. And so that's why they don't. That's why you sit there and say votes were delayed today. Whenever they're trying to do pieces of legislation. Nancy Pelosi, remember back to when they pushed through Obamacare. How long did that process take? There could be a vote today. There could be a vote tomorrow. We might wait until next week. They're voting. They're figuring it out. They're not. It's a procedural measure. They take the temperature. And all the while, there are whips out there. Whips. Not in the kinky way. Although Dick Durbin, you look at the guy and you think, maybe. He probably would be. But that's beside the point. Beside the point. Shame on you for thinking those thoughts. But you look at the situation, the whips are out there going, all right, they call every member, where are you going to vote, how are you going to vote, which way are you going to go? Now, on occasion, they just go, at hell with it. I can't keep waiting. The person won't give me an answer. Let's put them on the spot. If you remember, Republicans were one vote away in 2017, I think it was, from repealing and replacing Obamacare in the United States Senate. They didn't know. They had everybody's vote. They knew how everybody was going to vote except for one person, John McCain. Mitch McConnell got sick of waiting for John McCain. John McCain was being coy. John McCain was sitting on the fence. And then apparently John McCain hinted that he was going to be cool with it. Yeah, no, totally. Thumbs up all the way. And then the vote comes time, and in comes John McCain. And he's kind of sitting there. And he just stand there down in the well, and he's like, I don't know. And he gives the thumbs down. And that was it. That was one of the few times that they did a vote. I think if I remember correctly, Democrats started to cheer, and Chuck Schumer like wheeled around at him and said, no, don't cheer, don't cheer, don't cheer. But they were cheering. That was what they were doing. They knew exactly what the deal was. It was one of the few times when there was a surprise vote, and they had just won. The Democrats had just won and embarrassed Republicans. Now, it's not hard to embarrass Republicans. They do a pretty damn thorough job of it themselves, so, what are you going to do? But it is worthy of note that most of the time they know. They might not know the total vote count. And it's really weird. If you want to talk about a lack of principled people, they'll sit there and go, well, we don't know how the votes are going to shake out with this particular thing. We don't know. And then once somebody, when they go through the roll call, one person votes for something, and then it frees up and they win by a lot. And what the hell happened? It's because members of Congress are cowards. They don't want to be the only one. It's funny because they all talk about how principled they are, but there never really are, except for McCain. I can't think of a single time when one person made the difference. They're like, there's 7 members. We don't know how they're going to vote. Well, once one of them votes one way, then everybody's like Survivor. Okay, well, they're not going to screw me over, and they're going to vote for Rudy, so I'm going to vote for Rudy. Otherwise, they were ready to change their vote because I'm not going to be the only one. I don't want to tick off leadership. So Jim Jordan lost again, and each time, the third time was not the charm. Jim Jordan lost more votes this time again. He was prepared to go into the weekend. There was maybe going to be another vote. They don't even know. I mean, they just can't get their act together. And so at the caucus meeting with Republicans, Jim Jordan said, well, why don't we find out if you still want me to be your speaker designate? And a majority of Republicans said, no, they don't. And so Jim Jordan's out. And you just have to look at these people and you go, if I'm married to a Republican member of Congress who throws you're not popular enough, I'm going to throw you under the bus. I stand behind, I'm fully for this person, and then they're like, you know what? It's getting a little tough. I'm out of here. I'm going to be a little insecure about the future of my marriage if I'm married to one of these Democrats. The going gets tough and the tough get the hell out of Dodge. Is that how it is? Now, before all this drama started, we got Matt Gaetz here. I mean, I guess I can't say before all this drama started. While all this drama was unfolding, Matt Gaetz is catching hell. I think Matt Gaetz is learning how wildly unpopular stepping into a field of rakes and trying to run through it blindfolded is in the Republican Party. See, we Republican voters are not like these morons up on Capitol Hill. We look at stupidity and we go, stop being stupid. Solve the problem. Maybe you morons should stop being stupid. Just vote for somebody. Just pick somebody. And, you go, who caused this problem? You go, oh, yeah, Matt Gaetz, Nancy Mace. You notice the first few days, Matt Gaetz and Nancy Mace were all over television. They were loving it. Look, I don't take PAC money. Give money to me. Yeah, you win with 70% of the vote. You don't really need to raise any money, Matt. You're not a hero here. All you're doing is kneecapping your own team. All you're doing is putting thumbtacks on the seats of your own teammates. Congratulations on that. Nancy Mace running around with a big scarlet A. Oh, it's my scarlet letter on my overly tight, unnecessarily tight T-shirt because I'm such a rebel. Because I dared stand up for principle. Did you? I mean, the A in the book stands for adultery, and you are about to get into your third marriage, but we're not going to make any value judgments here. No. We'll just stand back and see what you clowns come up with. Well, they came up with nothing. And now Matt Gaetz is feeling the heat. Because the threat to Matt Gaetz is never in the general election. The Democrats, they ran that Rebecca Jones after him. Remember the data scientist who proved that Ron DeSantis was cooking the books about COVID, and then he's like, no, she's like a geographer, and she had nothing to do with anything of this nature, and she was just lying, and she's been convicted a few times of various problems with the law. And the media ran with it. They still make her into a hero. She got the Democratic nomination to run against Matt Gaetz because it's essentially a suicide mission. It's a heavily Republican district, and it's Florida. But he's got a worry now because the Republican base is so mad at him for just exposing all this stupidity unnecessarily, having no plan at all. Follow me over here. All right. Why? I don't know. I don't know. Well, we just went through hell to get here. I know. I don't know why we're here. We can go back if you want. Not leadership. Matt Gaetz' threat to Matt Gaetz is in the primary. And so now he's got to try and change his tune and try and seem more rational, try and seem more serious, try to seem like the voice of reason. So out on the steps of the Capitol today, he's asked about this situation. Now he goes into self-flagellation mode. He says, we'll take one for the team, the 8 of us who voted with Democrats to start this whole mess. You can kick us off of committees. You can make us absolutely worthless. Please, for the love of God, let's vote for Jim Jordan at the time, because we've got to get out there. He offers up this deal. Please beat me. Throw me into the briar patch, and we'll call it even. Listen to it for yourself. Cut 3. Go ahead.
So we've made them an offer. The 8 of us have said that we are willing to accept censure, sanction, suspension, removal from the Republican conference. We, of course, will remain Republicans. We will continue to vote with Republicans on Republican principles. But if what these holdouts need is a pound of our flesh, we're willing to give it to them in order to see them elect Jim Jordan for Speaker.
We're willing. We are so principled. We're going to stand on this. Well, where was these principles and loyalty and everything before? Because Jim Jordan was a fervent supporter of Kevin McCarthy, right? Jim Jordan nominated Kevin McCarthy for Speaker back when nope, not interested. They didn't want that pound of flesh, because what the good is a pound of rotten flesh. But what's really interesting and really bad and just like embarrassing and lacks the self-awareness of, I don't know, this is like Kardashian level lack of self-awareness, is Matt Gaetz then goes on to say that what they're doing is legislating. Now, you can call it lots of things, but the complete and total inability to do anything legislatively whatsoever is not legislating. Cut 4, go ahead.
The world's on fire, and some of your colleagues do blame you for this disruption.
Well, I would say that we've got a speaker designate. We could elect him. We could have a speaker right now. And, I think the world was on fire when America sat atop a $33 trillion debt with no plan to reduce spending. I think the world was on fire as we watched the dollar just continue to slip away in its status as the global reserve currency. So maybe when the lobbyists and the special interests don't have total control of a Speaker of the House, they think the world is on fire and in chaos. But we actually believe this is governing, this is legislating.
When in doubt, throw some buzzwords out there. Lobbyists and special interests. You know what a special interest is? It's a group of people redressing the government for their grievances that you don't like. They're the lobbyists. They're the special interests. Otherwise, they're just activist groups. The word has no meaning. It's the lobbyist money. All right, Matt, where's your piece of legislation? See, because if you want to get money out of government, there's a real simple way to do it, ladies and gentlemen. Get the government out of money, right? Once the government stops spending 40% of GDP, they go back to drawing within the lines of the government as laid out by the Constitution, what the government is allowed to do. You'll find a whole bunch of people will stop lobbying the government because the government is no longer giving out massive contracts. The government is no longer picking winners and losers. The lobbyists exist because the government does so much. And it's weird because the people who decry lobbyists the most are the people who get the government to do the most, thereby creating the most lobbyists, more lobbyists, more lobbyists. Government needs to do more. Government needs to spend. It's just one of those ironies in life that nobody ever thinks of, and nobody up on Capitol Hill would bother, or nobody in the press corps would bother to ask a question about. I'm just saying. But no, Jim Jordan is now dead. which I just want to point this out because I know Jim Jordan is now gone. He's withdrawn his name officially, and Byron Donalds is now one of the official announced things. They're going to wait until Tuesday to see. On Monday, they're going to have a whole bunch of new people come forward and try to say that they should be this. It's just a mess. It's a disgrace. Adults should not behave this way. They should be replaced, all of them, to be honest with you. But, and when Republicans, you can sit there and say, well, nobody's going to care about this next year, Derek. Nobody's going to care. This is going to be forgotten. Now, it will be. The specifics will be forgotten. What won't be forgotten is the sense, the failure. The Republicans can't get their act together. Democrats are going to spend a lot of money reminding people of this. You can say, well, people will forget about it. People will have moved on by then. Democrats will be reminding them of it. They're the obnoxious person who remembers whatever your worst moment is and brings it up every dinner. Like, hey, remember that time that you got your butt kicked in junior high? Yeah, I do. All right. I don't need to be reminded of it. Still got the scar. I'm fully aware. Democrats are going to be right there with it. And Republicans are so horrible at messaging, they're going to be way more effective. And Democrats have the entire apparatus of the media, of Hollywood, of popular culture. You say, well, no, but I don't watch TV. I don't have it. Well, congratulations. You're in a distinct minority. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be aware of popular culture for it to impact your life. In fact, the less aware of popular culture that you are, the more it impacts your life, because you can't counter it. You can't talk about it. You can't undo the damage done. You got nothing. As evidenced by the morons over at The View. The View is a part of NBC or ABC News, or it used to be part of ABC News. They moved it to ABC Entertainment a few years ago. I think even the news department recoiled in horror at the things that they were saying. Like, there are 5 women on this show. Not one of them could pass a 3rd grade civics test. None of them have any idea what they're talking about, but they all say so. The key to being a success on television is you don't have to know things. You just have to be willing to say anything like you do. You just plow forward and say it with conviction. It could be the biggest load of excrement you could possibly imagine, but you just say it like you know it, like you were there. I saw it with my own 2 eyes, damn it. And people will go, all right, well, this must be true. Now with television, cable news, and pseudo-news programs, people assume that those people know what they're doing, because why else would they be on television? I'm here to tell you they're on television for the express purpose that they're willing to say anything on television. That's it. The people with the most knowledge rarely make it on television. There was a time back in my day, but not anymore. Policy experts used to beat a path. When I was at the Heritage Foundation, they'd beat a path from 214 Massachusetts Avenue over to the CNN, MSNBC, and Fox were all pretty much in the same building. They'd just nonstop. There'd be people. There'd be 20, 30 hits a day on these various networks by policy analysts who know what they're doing. They do this for a living. And then one day it just stopped. It just stopped. So now you got Sunny Hostin or whatever the hell her name is, the racist lady over at The View. Listen to her talk about Jim Jordan. I just want to demonstrate what Jim Jordan was up against. What you're about to hear is a lie, but it doesn't matter. Cut 2, go ahead.
If Republicans primary those members with somebody right-wing, those seats will go to Democrats. Republicans will lose the House majority. It is nonsensical what the House is doing. They cannot get their act in order, and frankly, we're going to deserve it if we lose next cycle.
So they're being self-destructive.
It's incredibly self-destructive.
It's so chaotic. I mean, karma doesn't lose anyone's address, and I'm kind of enjoying it in a sense, because I've had my own personal interaction with Jim Jordan where he terrorized me.
Really?
Yeah, when I was testified in front of Congress. He was like spitting. He was yelling at me so much that he started spitting.
No, he started spitting. He terrorized her. I mean, she's probably still in therapy for it. The only problem is Mediaite went back and looked at her testimony before Congress and her interactions with Jim Jordan, and they had 0 interactions. Jim Jordan never spoke to her, never asked her a single question. In fact, the panel that she was on, she was only asked 2 questions. Both of them were from Congressman Hank Jordan, a Democrat. Never once did Jim Jordan speak her name, let alone address her in any way, shape, or form. But there she is on television, pulling a Biden, misremembering her own life. You get enough of this crap, how do you overcome it? First of all, you got to be aware of it, and then you got to really seriously push back on it. And Republicans, they're too busy pushing each other. Holy Frank Tanana, 1 hour is down already. Yeah, that's Sonny Houston. Hostin, I never knew how to pronounce her name, and I don't respect her enough to bother to learn. She never, Mediaite posted the C-SPAN video. You can watch it for yourself. They never bothered to talk to her, because why? What is she bringing to the table anyway? We'll be back on the other side of news. Stick around.